Hi, Jamie with you again. I hope you're very well indeed. Thanks for joining me on Talking Sonics, and it's thankfully 2021. Let's hope this is going to be a better year than the last, of course. I'm here to talk about buying studio monitors and what studio monitors are a good choice in 2021. Well, I can tell you that I've been in music production and enjoying making music for a very long time, and there's never been a better time for buying studio monitors. The choice out there is fantastic. Lots of high quality products, lots of product development in terms of engineering speakers, silk dome tweeters, ribbon tweeters, all sorts of composite materials, giving lots of choice. And of course, there's so many musicians out there making music. There's lots of product out there to enjoy. So where to start? Well, my aim moving forward is to talk about products and recording technology, both from a beginner's point of view, but hopefully also to present some information or my perspective on recording from a professional point of view as well. So it's not just about, the basics, but I will throw in some basic stuff. So where do we start? Well, the first thing to really understand about studio monitors is breaking them into some different categories. And one category might be large format studio monitors. You might have seen photographs of big control rooms in large recording studios with soffit-mounted JBL speakers or large 15-inch woofers and big horns mounted in the walls, or if you've ever been fortunate enough to be in a fantastic high-quality environment for mastering, you might have seen some Duntech Sovereigns like Bob Ludwig uses for mastering, and Jack the Bear in Melbourne. Huge speakers that you really need to be at a long distance away from to hear the full sound. And of course, being big speakers, you need to have a very big controlled room to listen to that, a controlled environment, acoustically controlled environment. So large format speakers is obviously, being large, expensive, but more suited to larger listening environments. It's an expensive luxury for most musicians and songwriters and, really high quality mix engineers. They'll be using near fields, which you can see behind me here are some event BAS 2020 3 series powered monitors. So the advantage of having close monitoring is that basically the sound is coming quite literally closely into your ears. There's not a lot of distance between the speakers and your ears, so you're hearing the mix hopefully as intended as you're working on the tracks and recording the tracks or mixing things. Of course, your room environment plays a big part. Behind me I have a diffuser. This is a fairly expensive designed sound diffuser to spread the sound, and above me I have some dampening and other dampening in the room to create a nice zone where it reduces or limits reflections, and any reflections or sound coming out of the back of the speakers is sort of scattered in multiple directions, so ideally not back into my ears. What I want to hear coming from close near field monitors is hopefully the mix and no sort of other room artifact. So if you're in a bright mixing room, not a good idea. Try and dampen it and experiment a little bit as well. Try some different softening techniques to create an environment that sounds good for you. And the third category I like to call real world simulators, and these are kind of like micro monitors. Back in the I think 70s were released a little product called Auratone Cubes, which were about this big, a little cube speaker. They were a full range, or limited range, but basically a one paper cone speaker to simulate the sound of maybe just a TV set or a little speaker that's put in a car radio. Not the modern car radios we have today, but think about what might have been in a 1970s family wagon, something fairly simple on the dash, a paper cone speaker. Nowadays, there's lots of choice with Bluetooth speakers. I can think of the JBL Flip series Bluetooth speakers, fantastic little things. And also, as I might have mentioned, Bob Clearmountain and Mix This Studios before in a previous post. Down here, I have one of these real world speakers from, I think this is an 80s Apple speaker. So these come in stereo pairs and power up and have RCA inputs for them. But those guys are an interesting little listening speaker. But, you know, mix and match. I mean, find things that are real world for you. So they're very low cost, but I think for the musician, you're going to be concentrating on choosing and looking to buy a near-field monitor like these guys, or perhaps something a little bit classic. Now, I've got down here the old Yamaha NS10M, which is a bit of a workhorse, a bit of a favourite for mix engineers, very popular in the 80s, and now making a bit of a comeback. Now, I'll put that down because it's a bit heavy. But Avantone, who also make what's called an Avantone Cube, which is a knockoff of the Auratone Cube, they are making a reboot of the Yamaha NS10 studio monitors, endorsed by mix engineer Chris Lord-Ouch. Now, while his name and his signature's on the box, there's not really any information published anywhere about how he contributed to the speaker design or why he has endorsed it. The interesting thing is the product has a VTPC knob on the back, which they've called a variable tissue paper control. Now, what's that all about? Well, it's all about the high frequency drivers being very harsh in the old Yamaha NS10 speakers, and so much so that many mix engineers, including famously Bob Clearmountain, put some tissue paper over them to soften or dampen the top end, because they can give you ear fatigue and they can be quite harsh to listen to. There are some advantages, of course, to the NS10s being very pronounced in their mid-range, so you can hear vocal level very well. And they have quite a pronounced sort of low-mid kind of honky tone about them. So if you push too much 500 hertz into them, or some unusual low-mid frequencies or boomy frequencies, they will really show these up. But as for the new Avantone CLA NS10s, or CLA-10A speakers, they are brighter, or people have said they are brighter. Therefore, they have included a dampening knob on the back, which they're calling the variable tissue paper, which I think is a bit of a wank. Anyway, that's one choice for you to look into. But the thing is, with the old Yamaha NS10s, is while they're very good for getting a mixed balance, they are very ear fatiguing, and also they, frankly, just go down to about 60 hertz. Now, compare that to these guys. Now, why am I using Event BAS Series 3 monitors, these powered monitors? Because they are very, very beautiful to listen to. They're quite uncoloured. They have a lovely silky silk dome tweeter. They're very soft on the ears. They go down to 37 hertz. So there's quite a full spectrum. I can hear subsonics on them and mix quite a lot, but they're just not too pronounced in terms of some sort of magical silky hi-fi tone. They're quite flat. So, you know, you really have to mix into these speakers. So I find the harder I work, I get better separation and end up getting a better sound of my mix, and it translates well for me. It's up to you as to what other choices you might like to look at. There are the Adam AX7 speakers, and also very popular for engineers and musicians in Britain at the moment, the Unity Audio The Rock speakers, also with ribbon tweeters, which have this incredible sort of transparency. You hear the depth in the room, you hear stereo image so well. They're really fantastic speakers. I did some work and some recording with engineer, producer Richard Stolz at Melbourne's Woodstock studio, and he just swears by these guys. I think he might have mentioned names like Flood and Alan Moulder and other UK producers using these speakers. Don't ask me the cost of those ones. They're probably a little bit more expensive than Adams or Carly Audio, which are a new US producer. Also with very soft silk dome tweeters. So, you know, the technology these days is really gone leaps and bounds in terms of what the quality of the product is since the world of the NS10 studio monitor. So the advantage really is long mix hours, less ear fatigue, and for me that's really, really important. Yes, to avoid ear fatigue you can, or you should really listen at low mix levels, but look, I just get excited about music. I honestly turn it up loud quite often. I find these guys fantastic. I very rarely get ear fatigue, and I used to do a lot of mixing on NS10s, and boy, a couple of hours and I was done. Really, the ear fatigue messes with your brain and makes it very hard to concentrate and make decisions in terms of balances, and in particular the mid-range balance of things. How bright are the guitars, how loud a vocal should be in a track. Just you get very confused with ear fatigue. So go for those modern speakers. I think there's some great choices to have a look for, and really, you know, use your ears. Try and find what you like. If you can get your store to lend them or loan them to you for a bit of a demo, that would be a fantastic idea. So twist their arm, try that one. But yeah, silk dome or ribbon dome tweeters, fantastic, and hopefully look for something that's low range. I mean, these guys, like the Unity Audio, go down to 37 hertz, so certainly hearing subsonics, the full bass spectrum. So great for mixing drums, kick drum, bass guitar, low synth, all that sort of full-bodied stuff. So finally, you've got your great mix. You're happy with what you've got here, but it may not have translated well when you took it out into the real world. Well, how can you prevent problems? The real key to this is putting your mix on a little USB key, something like that, and carry it around with you. Plug it in the back of your TV set, your HDTV, play the song through that. Play your mix in your car stereo if you can plug a USB into that. Stick it on your computer, listen in your earbuds, on common sources, the Apple earbuds. Have a listen to, as I said, the JBL Flip Series or whatever your favourite Bluetooth speaker is. And aren't we lucky these days having these fantastic little often mono speakers, which is good too, because you can listen to another source in mono and see how your mix translates. Is the vocal level where you expect it to be? Are the guitars too loud, too soft? If you're a guitar band, if you're a synth band, how is the balance between the different parts? So yeah, getting your mix onto as many sources as possible is a great choice. I think for most songwriters and musicians recording at home, think about two things. One, a great near-field monitor system, something like this, or the CLA Audio, or the Unity Audio, or the Atom speakers, the AX7s, something like that, whatever you might prefer. Create a good mixer environment. Don't just leave a bright, open, reflective room. Really concentrate. Spend a bit of money on sound acoustics if you can. And then once you've got your favourite mix, you're happy with what you've done, happy with your work, stick it on a USB and listen on different sources, and you'll be surprised at what you might learn. You might be able to hear more sibilance on a HDTV than you can in studio monitors and think, oh, the sibilance of the vocals is too bright. Or you might be playing it in a very low-end, beefy, subsonic car stereo and realise that you need to roll off some bottom end in your mix. So it's really great to have a listen to other sources and compare your mix. So that's my tips for now. Try out the near fields. There's a great range of modern, fantastically, beautifully engineered speakers out there these days. Be smart about it. Ask for advice. Don't be afraid to ask if you can perhaps do a trial. And yeah, there you go. So if you've got any questions or concerns or thoughts, please comment below. I'd love to talk to you. Please subscribe, tap the bell, and you will get notified on when we are doing another chat. So thanks for joining me on Talking Sonics. I hope you're very well indeed. Stay safe. I will see you next time. Thank you.